Welcome to Inside Aesthetics, the world's leading podcast for injectors and aesthetic businesses. I'm Dr. Jake Sloane, an aesthetic doctor with over 16 years experience in facial aesthetics.
And I'm David Segal, an entrepreneur and business mentor with over 20 years of experience in our industry. Our podcasts are aimed at industry professionals, and any information or advice given is general in nature. You should consult with a healthcare provider before undergoing any treatment.
You can also subscribe to us on Patreon for on-demand content for injectable and business education. It has been a while since I have seen your face.
Lucky you.
Well, I don't know about that. I kind of missed you, to be honest. I missed the routine of life and work and the fact that podcast recordings are piling up.
Yes.
And it's all because of me and my little trip.
Yes. And you must miss all my conspiracy theories and views on the world.
General red pill type views on the world. Yeah. How are you, mate?
I'm good. It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like...
Well, it's been 2 weeks. Not that long, but for us, that's quite long.
It is. And you've got more travel coming up.
Yes. Well, I guess we'll get into the topic of travel and conferences and just how to plan for it.
Yeah.
I thought it would be an interesting topic.
Well, why don't we maybe just run through what we're going to talk about today? Because it's just you and I. It's the Jake and Dave show today.
Yes.
So maybe, let's give people a flavour for what's on the menu.
Well, I thought what we'd do, obviously you've got your own travels and things as well. We'll break it up into what we've been doing, what I was doing away, both in the States and Australia. But, you know, no one wants to hear my sort of holiday review, but what were my learnings and I guess insights that injectors might think about and businesses as well, of course.
Sure. Okay.
So, yeah.
Very nice. And then in terms of what's happening with me, I've done some recent workshops for Alma. And the topic of discussion was how to integrate devices successfully into your practice. So I did like an hour-long talk, which was quite good. I had a really nice sort of small group of people, really engaged, and just spoke about like my philosophies on how to incorporate devices successfully, how to choose the right one, etc. So we'll dive into that. And then also I'm doing some continued workshops with Hugel. I've got a few trips next month around the country for them. I did some last year with just helping their clients with financial literacy. And it's something that a lot of medical people tend to shy away from because it's scary. They don't understand it, but we really need to get our head around these things. So I'm just going to cover off that a little bit as well.
Cool. Well, that sounds fun. So I only got back yesterday. I was away in the States for about 8 or 9 days. Firstly, I went to LA. So we'll concentrate on LA and then we'll talk about AMWC in Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I went for a couple of reasons. One, I was asked by Robertson, who was one of our previous guests.
Yes.
I can't remember what episode, to be honest, but it was a while ago.
Yes.
But she is a very well-known injector in the States based in LA, and she runs the Aesthetic Immersion, which is her own online course, but also they do in-person training as well. It's very successful. She's very busy, and she's got this incredible facility like right next to her clinic. In fact, they're joined with studios, multiple studios, recording studios. She's got a team of, I would guess, 6 guys, marketing and obviously video editors and sound engineers. And I was like, wow, this is like incredible.
Scale production.
And I said to them, we need this for the podcast. So, so we recorded some content with Laurie, which was cool. We did a live consultation where obviously we brought in a patient and Laurie basically threw me in. I'd never met this woman. We hadn't really planned it, but she said, just show me how you consult because, you probably do it differently to me. So I sort of showed both her and the patient, and we obviously recorded this, how I use clinical photography to, I guess, show the patient their reality. A lot of injectors, understandably, they have been trained to talk and maybe use a mirror to sort of point in the mirror and, talk live with the patient about their face. But I've never found that useful because the patient ultimately has their own ideas about what they want or what they think they want. And yet when you show them the clinical photography, and we must have discussed this 100 times on the podcast, but it really disarms them because they see them for what they are. They're not posing, they're not smiling. It's just them with different views, different angles, different expressions, no makeup, hair in a standardized way. And, relating this back to what we're trying to do in Australia with regulations, that's what our regulator wants, to show people normal, no fake photos, no sort of sales tactics. It's just, let's diagnose your face. So we recorded that whole process. And then Laurie and I did a bit of a joint facial assessment and sort of walked through what she would do, what I would do. It's quite cool because obviously we're different injectors and we use different products in our own practice. And then, of course, I can't inject in America. So Laurie did a live injection of the patient. She got a very nice, subtle, simple result that looks natural. So, yeah. We also did a video on the path to becoming a KOL, because obviously Laurie is very experienced. She works mainly with Galderma. I work with Allergan. And I guess there might be injectors out there wondering, well, could I train one day? Could I teach one day? So we give people a little of, our story, how we got into this. And these videos and more will eventually be available on the Aesthetic Immersion. So we will let you know when they're out.
So tell me, what was the main differences between the way that you the way you do consult and the way that Laurie consults? What were the key differences?
So this is a broader statement, not Laurie, but I have noticed that, the way clinical photography is done just generally is generally probably not the gold standard.
Right.
People, of course, have tried their best with the equipment they have to try and standardize as best as they could. But, if you don't use an SLR camera, if you don't use a flash, and if you don't have a standardized way of positioning your model, and some people are still using the ring light, for example, that's actually going to glamorize your patient in the pre-photos.
Right.
And so when they look at their photos or you look at their photos, they look good. They look better. You're hiding the shadows, you're hiding the hollows, and you're glamorizing. That's why they use, we've got a big light here in our studio. We're trying to look glamorous.
Yeah.
We're trying to look awake. But they that's why they use massive lights on TV.
Yeah.
You want to look good. But in a clinical photo, you're not trying to make a patient look bad, but you want to see their
reality,
their actual reality. Exactly. So, every clinic that I visit, speaking to injectors, and I'm seeing injectors on stage presenting their work at AMWC, it kills me that they can't showcase their work, or they're actually deluding themselves that the work is either better than it really is because of the use of lighting. It's a shame.
So are you saying that people are using different lighting between before and afters?
And not maybe deliberately. I'm not saying that anyone is trying to sort of, con the patient or the viewer, but ultimately it's using either inconsistent light. So generally in the after shot, the light is ramped up so the patient just looks better. It's very obvious to anyone who looks at the photos that, the light has been changed. And you're not really showcasing a result. You're just showcasing some light and what light can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just wish injectors would really think about this.
What do you think the issue is? Do you think it's like a money thing that people don't want to spend the money on equipment, or do you think it's just not knowing how to do it?
I mean, it's funny, just before we recorded, we have struggled with light in our own studio.
Yeah.
Now, looking at this picture as we are on the screen, it looks fine. But I mean, for our purposes, our problem is Zoom.
Yeah.
So Zoom throttles the quality. So when we put these out as short clips on Instagram, they look grainy.
Yeah.
It's not our cameras. We have certainly invested. We've got decent lights, but I think we've agreed that we could upgrade and we could do even better. But we're not doing clinical photography.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a separate issue. We just want to look good so people don't think we look knackered.
Yeah.
But when you're doing clinical photography, sure, maybe there's a roadblock as to money, but I don't think that's the main issue. I think the issue is people don't know what they don't know. I'm not a photographer. And until we did our first webinar with Woodrow back in 2020, Woodrow's a photographer here who's got his own system called Clinical Imaging. And, for full disclosure, we have a deal with him. So if you want to sort of explore how could you do it or should you do it, there'll be a link down below and you can sort of look at that. But I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't have known if I wasn't educated how to take proper photography.
Yeah.
So I was doing it on my phone. I was doing it with natural daylight coming through the window. And of course, if it's cloudy or sunny, it's going to change every 5 minutes.
Of course.
And that's what people are still doing, sadly.
Yeah. And I think maybe there's not as much value attached to it. So when people look at a system and think
it's an afterthought,
they've got they'll spend like big money on a clinic fit out and get, really nice finishes and computers and all that kind of stuff. But then if a system for their photography, it's $5,000-$10,000, it's kind of like that wasn't budgeted for, or they don't see the value in it. When really, I think it's probably the most important tool that you have in your clinic.
Well,
probably.
And especially in America where you can showcase your results. Here,
yeah, especially in America where you get sued for everything.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, funny, I've still not, I mean, I'm sure it happens all the time, but I've not met anyone who's sort of shared that this, suing is happening on a regular basis? I don't know. Maybe
it's just got a reputation for being extremely litigious.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I got off the plane and I'm going from my Uber to the airport, and literally, the big billboards on the motorway, every second one is a lawyer talking about.
Better Call Saul.
I specialize in Uber crashes,
right.
and I specialize in, all these niche sort of things that they sue for, and it's no win, no fee, and all the rest of it. So it's super in your face.
I keep thinking about, if I'm showing my age here, the old Seinfeld episode where Kramer spills a hot coffee on himself and then tries to sue the coffee company for selling it too hot.
That's hilarious.
But you mentioned and we have spoken about this, the difference between consulting from a photograph versus a mirror.
Yeah.
And I think that it just objectifies it more. It makes it less personal. It's almost like you can both be more objective about what you're looking at.
Correct.
When it's a photograph.
You both sit on the side together and you look at the screen and you're kind of on the same team.
Yeah.
Versus mirror, the patient is almost at one with the mirror.
Yeah.
It's a weird, seems subtle, but it's very real.
Yeah. No, it's interesting the way that the psychology works on that. Yeah. Okay. So the clinical photography is something that potentially is done different, but what else was different in the consultation process in terms of your flow, the things you talk about, how do you structure it differently? Because it's something that we used to struggle with this with our injectors all the time, is trying to get some kind of standardized consultation process, and people falling into the trap of being an order taker. What can I help you with today? What's bothering you about your face? Being afraid to make recommendations, feeling like they don't have permission to sort of make recommendations because they feel like they might be insulting the patient, or the patient can't afford it. They're scared to say how much these things will cost.
Yep.
So all those things come up as challenges. So what else did you discover was different? Or what did you learn that you maybe implement into yours?
Well, I guess, once Laurie and I were sort of, more onto the assessment phase rather than the consultation phase, we obviously look at a face very similarly. So it was great that, two, experts or experienced injectors would agree on things, because I was worried that we wouldn't.
Yeah.
That could always be a thing, because, you ask 100 injectors what you do with this face and you always get 100 opinions. It's just normal. But we had a similar strategy. Now, in terms of product volume, product choice, cannula versus needle, and actual strategy, sure, that varied. But ultimately, the same goal was, let's work on the lateral cheek to get a bit of lift and shape. Let's do a little bit on the front of the cheek to make her look less tired. And then something around the chin needs to be addressed. So we broadly agreed that she needed the same thing, but our approach and volumes and product choice was different. Because, she's more aligned to Galderma products, and she's super experienced with that. And that's what she used, and the patient looked great.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is that there's many ways of doing these things.
So the clinical endpoint that you got to with that treatment, was that similar to what you had envisaged if you had done your products and volumes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, interesting.
So, she looked natural. She looked a little bit more contoured, a little bit more symmetrical, less tired. And around her chin, she just looked better proportioned.
Right.
So I would have done the same things with different stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was interesting.
Okay.
And one thing that I've noticed in America, people this is a real broad statement, but needle does seem to be a preferred tool. Even for the front of the cheek. Here in Australia, we would tend to use cannula.
Yeah.
But again, it's not right or wrong. Maybe it's more old fashioned, at least for us in Australia, but often people will use a needle in America. Laurie didn't. She used actually a cannula, but speaking to people and observing people and some of the videos at AMWC, that's just how they're taught, and that's okay.
And is that because they feel they've got more control?
I think, again, this isn't like a criticism. It's an easier way of injecting. You sort of put your needle in and you contact the bone and you do a bolus. I mean, it's more intuitive than let's fan this product through different fat pads and sort of be a bit more artistic. But ultimately, the patient that we treated, and Nicola, we'll get onto Nicola's sort of patient that we did, looked great. And different technique to me.
Yeah.
So again, I think that as people listening to this, there isn't one way of doing something. Learn all the techniques, play around with different products, and see what feels more comfortable for you. Because, you'll be marketed to by various companies, and they'll tell you their way is the best way. Well, the best way is the one that you feel comfortable with and your patients like, and they're safe.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
Right.
I mean, it always slightly throws me when I work with a different injector because I've got my way of doing things, and as you know, I can be quite rigid, and I like to plan things, and it can throw me because I'm like, that's different to me. I wonder where this is going, but it was great. Yeah.
All right. So then you went off to spend time with Nicola, again, one of our podcast alumni. What did you? I guess what were you guys did like a webinar together, I believe.
Yeah. Well, this sort of was planned quite late, but was a great success. But ultimately, we were supposed to meet for dinner. I said to her, I'm going to LA. Let's catch up for dinner. And she said, sure. And then maybe half an hour later, she WhatsApped me and she said, hey, well, you're here. Let's do something. Because I've just built this amazing educational center at my clinic. And we'll sort of get onto that, but it was stunning. And I said, okay, cool. What are you suggesting? Because Nicola runs her own courses.
Right.
So her clinic is called N2 Aesthetics, and she's had various people from around the world come, similar to when I had Tom Van Eyck here last year, and they hold a day's course. And I said, cool, what should we do? And then she said, well, we're both trained for Allergan. Let's see if they want to do something. And it just sort of went from there, and it was planned over a couple of weeks, but essentially it turned into this monster hybrid webinar. So we had 3,000 people register. Holy moly. Which, as far as I'm sort of heard, was the biggest sort of registration they've ever had for anything, which is like ridiculous.
Are you taking all the credit for that?
No, not at all. I think the main thing was that the content of what we were talking about.
Right.
But sure, if I was popular and sort of contributed, that's great. But I don't think it was me.
Right.
But the focus was I spoke about a little bit like what I was doing with Laurie, but consultation, but also patient psychology and the patient journey from booking to arriving in your clinic, and how do you establish trust and credential yourself as a qualified good injector.
Right.
Again, I think a lot of injectors are taught how to inject. They are not taught the soft skills, the bedside manner, the consultation, and from your perspective, the business side of things. It's sort of a lost art that somehow is expected of people just to sort of do. And if you can crack that, and I promise you, if you're listening, think about, if someone comes to your website, why would they book? Like, does it obviously look nice? Is it easy to book? But how are you credentialing yourself amongst the hundreds of injectors around you? Now, I'm not saying that you sit there and say, I'm the best injector in, Sydney, but maybe from the patient's perspective, what would sway them to book with you? Is it because, you've been injecting for so many years? Is it because you've done so many courses? Is it because you invest in your education? Is it because you're a caring person? Is it because, you do something particularly special and that's your expertise? But if you're not saying that on your website or your social media or wherever you brand yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're just in a sea of other injectors who might shout louder than you.
Yeah.
So it was a weird thing for me because I'm telling American injectors how to brand themselves when in Australia we can't do that.
Yes.
So I was honest and said, this is weird for me because you guys can sing and wave and dance and do all of that and even mention the drug name. Whereas from my perspective, I'm between the guide rails. I've got to do it very sort of delicately, but ultimately that's the same goal, isn't it? Then Nicola sort of spoke about how to treat the mid-face and the jawline, so more technique related. And then we had a live model where, similar to Laurie, we did a bit of mid-face, bit of lower face. But then, and this is why I think it was so popular, we were the first injectors in the world to how to treat the platysma muscle on label with Botox. It's a new indication. Yeah. So that's only in America. It's not launched elsewhere, but in America we could talk about it and show people how to do it.
Right.
So exciting. It's always nice to get new indications for products because yes, we've been doing it for 100 years already, but to teach people a standardized technique that's safe, that's dose dependent, shown in trials to be, effective. And I was actually surprised it uses so little Botox. I thought, it would be more. It's actually kind of relatively cost effective for patients.
Right.
So
what was the standard protocol?
Well, when we had Sebastian Cotofano on, we spoke about, what he does with Botox in the lower face to get sort of cheek volume. And there was a little bit of that, but the points that Allergan are teaching are under the mandible. So that's treating the platysma where it sort of inserts into the face. And then for each band, you would do some Botox on the bands as well. Now, if you're in our Patreon, I have explained a bit more detail.
Right.
So
Little teaser.
Go to our Patreon and you'll see a bit more detail about how it's done.
Right.
But nevertheless, it was kind of exciting. It got people sort of pumped up, and maybe that's why it was popular. I don't know. And not to do a disservice to Nicola, she's a nationally and internationally renowned injector. Maybe it was just Nicola.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Nicola. Thank you for hosting me again.
So so any sort of key learnings from that sort of experience?
Yeah. One. Well, I forgot to say it was a hybrid training. So we had about 30 people live whilst we had 3,000 people online. So again, that was the first time that's happened.
Gosh.
And so for me, I was mainly trying to speak to the people online because there's more of them.
Right.
And probably more wider experience and including less experienced injectors. Whereas in the room, we had experienced Allergan trainers who really I was trying to impart, this is how I would teach you to train people, not what to do in your own clinic.
Right.
Because they're already experienced. So just from a teaching perspective, trying to talk to two audiences and make sense to everyone was a challenge for me, but I think it worked. We got really good feedback. But in terms of, the platysma, there's a couple of learnings for me. Normally, and I don't know how other people do what used to be called a Nefertiti lift, where you put Botox in the bands. Maybe people don't appreciate just how superficial platysma is. I mean, obviously, if you've got a fatter neck, yes, there's some fat, but in a normal neck, it's pretty superficial. And so I think a lot of Botox or whatever your toxin of choice is, it's probably wasted. You probably go through the muscle. One, you don't get as good an effect, but two, then you're treating other muscles, or if you're medial, risking dysphagia.
Wow.
So that's a problem. So that's a great learning point. If you're listening, think about where the platysma is, how thin it is in real life, and what are you going to do to modify to make sure your toxin gets in the muscle, not through the muscle.
Right.
So for me, my takeaway or learning point that I was trying to impress on people was maybe flatten your needle so it's more parallel to the skin rather than at a right angle through the skin.
Yeah, less chance of going too deep.
Correct. And then obviously, again, we can talk about dose another time, and we'll probably do a whole podcast on how to do platysma, but I was surprised at how little the units they were using.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's cool. So that was my sort of experience with Nicola. I also want to shout out her clinic because it's freaking stunning.
Yeah.
She's just done this big fit out, and she's built this, like I said, like an educational center. I showed you a photo.
Yes. Looks amazing.
Be interesting to see whether other injectors might start doing that model themselves. Obviously, maybe more experienced injectors who want to teach.
Yeah.
But, sort of saving on costs of renting out clinics or hotels or wherever you want to do your training. Why not build a facility? I mean, what do you think of that as a business model?
But in terms of like for building your own.
Yeah. Because, of course, you don't have to do all the training yourself. You could hire it out to companies.
Totally. I have to look at the numbers and work out what's it going to cost, what's the return going to be, how long is it going to take you to repay the investment?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to attract people? Do you have enough of a profile? But I think more and more people are wanting to go down, once they reach a certain point of development in their injecting career, or they get to a point where they just get a bit burnt out from it. I think that they want to gravitate towards being more educators.
Yeah.
And I guess having this sort of facility means you don't have to rely on other companies to, I mean, if you get people that want to hire you to use your space or want to engage you to teach on their behalf, then that's great. But like Nicola and Laurie have done, they do their education independently. So it's another revenue stream for them. They get to be off the tools a little bit. And so I think it's great. I think it's like probably where a lot of injectors want to progress to at some point.
I mean, seeing what Laurie and Nicola have done, sort of very different setups, but big expense. Like the equipment was, first rate. Yeah. And they obviously had teams to run that equipment. Yeah. And, the quality was amazing, and to sort of scale a webinar to 3,000 people with 4K definition and perfect sound and no buffering, that's no mean.
What system did they use for that?
I honestly don't know. Right. I mean, I saw their cameras because I thought, oh, wait, maybe we could put these in our podcast studio. Right. But they
weren't using Zoom though.
No, I don't know. Really not sure. Yeah, right. I don't want to comment on that. I'm not sure. Okay. Normally Allergan use Teams, but I don't know if they use Teams in America.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, it was amazing. So food for thought for us, and also just I guess this is for all injectors and businesses. If you want to just make content, forget podcasts or courses, mainly for your socials. I mean, I think the value of better planning and batch cooking
Yeah.
So, dedicate a whole day to recording like me and Laurie did. It will hugely make you more efficient, and it will force you to think, what are we going to do today? Why are we doing this? And why is this relevant for our listeners or our audience? And if we're guilty of this as well. I mean, we try our best, but podcasts are difficult because we're relying on guests to be available and different time zones. So for us, it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were a business wanting to create content for your website or your socials or even just photos, just map it out somehow and start batch cooking, because you'll save yourself so much time if you do it properly.
Yeah. So you mean by batch cooking? So you dedicate like a day per week, per month, per quarter, whatever it is, how much content you want to create, and then putting like a content plan together. So first of all, why? Why do you want to talk about this topic? What are you talking about? How are you going to communicate it? How are you going to split it up?
Yeah.
And I guess getting in the zone just makes you more efficient rather than stop, start. You get it all done. And then I guess you can sort of take all of that content you've recorded within that period and then subdivide it up into posts for the next month or whatever that period is. Yeah.
I mean, another weird one. Look, most people understand we don't want to be on camera. It's a very odd thing.
Yeah.
I think you and I have basically got used to it because we're doing it all the time, and it's almost like desensitization watching our face on these podcasts. But, when you go on stage with Hugel or Alma or whoever you speak for, it can be a bit weird, and you've got hundreds of eyes staring at you.
Yeah.
Any tips that you have learned? Because, you've been doing a lot of it recently.
I still shit myself, to be honest with you.
Okay. Do you think presumably you feel different, if you're recording something on your phone for social media versus being on a stage?
Yeah, of course.
That is different.
Yeah.
So how would people get comfortable, first of all, just being on their phone, talking to their audience on, say, Instagram?
Well, I think the first, I guess, I'm certainly no expert, but just be really comfortable with the subject matter to begin with. I think when you
good point.
When you know what you want to talk about, like I could talk about all the things that I'm really knowledgeable on. I could talk about them until people's ears bleed because I'm just really passionate about the things that I'm interested in. So I think number one, get really confident with your subject matter.
Yeah.
And then that way, if you lose your train of thought or you get nervous, that sort of becomes like your fallback, is that you've got such a deep knowledge that you can think on your feet. You can quickly, move to a different part of that conversation, or you can sort of ad lib a little bit if you sort of go off your plan. So I think knowing your content is really, really important. What works well for me, trying to focus on a few key people in the audience. So it also before the talk starts, like go and meet people, go and have a conversation with them. So I try and make an
icebreaker.
Yeah. So if obviously people are arriving before, just go, and some people you might already know who are going to be there, where they're going to be sitting. So they become like your friendly face in the audience that you use as a reference because they're usually going to be supportive of you, giving you like positive visual cues back. And just meeting as many people as you can. So it's not just like you feel like you're just talking to people that you know rather than like a room full of total strangers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That tends to help me a little bit. I think always talk slower than what you think. I'm a naturally really fast talker because my brain is just all over the place.
This came up actually on my trip. I met many people who listen to the podcast, and I think it was Tease. She's one of our listeners from Brazil. She was there at AMWC, and she actually said she's tried to listen to other podcasts about aesthetics, and I don't know if they're American-centric or where they were from, but she said she struggles to just understand. But our one, she quite kindly said that she finds it easy to understand. So even though you speak faster than maybe me, she gets it.
Right.
So well done.
Oh, great.
You are intelligible.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
So speak slower. What else? What else works for me? Gosh, we didn't plan to talk about this.
Well, I was going to maybe sort of bounce off you.
Yeah.
So for socials, and I guess being on stage as well, most people don't like seeing themselves or wondering what they look like on stage. Now, I don't think I'd ever get over that either. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Just because, you feel like you look like crap or your hair's not perfect, that's what the world sees every day.
Yeah.
So you somehow have to accept that's me. And just because I don't like seeing myself talking and I prefer one side of my face and so on, that's just something that I think you have to park to the side and go, well, that's just my problem. But the rest of the world sees me as a normal person talking.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually people's biggest barrier, at least on socials. They don't want to get on camera and talk and look at the camera. They feel awkward. They've never seen themselves in that way. Normally you would talk to someone, or you might be in a photo smiling, doing your best pose. But to talk live is a weird thing to see yourself.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this whole Zoom dysmorphia came from, because it was the first time people saw themselves just looking like crap.
Yeah.
You know, on a business meeting, for example.
And I think we just don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
So the more times you do things, the more desensitized you become. I think there are certain people who are just born natural extroverts, and they just gravitate towards presenting or becoming actors, or like those people exist just like any other discipline in life.
Yeah.
But for the rest of us, you just got to throw yourself in. I think you've got to be uncomfortable. You've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, another tip, and I think this is why the podcast works so well, is get someone on camera with you to bounce back and forth with. So, you know, if you get stuck, you lose your train of thought, you sort of, we do it telepathically now, but you just sort of turn to your colleague or your business partner or your injector in your clinic on camera. So they sort of take over and they fill in the gap.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe if you're not comfortable being on your own in that video, get your clinic involved, because then it starts branding your dermal therapist and your receptionist and your whoever. Yeah. That would be a nice way of doing it. And it's more fun as well. You're going to probably have a laugh rather than doing it on your own.
Yeah. And I think I don't know. I mean, there are lots of really compelling solo speakers and presenters around the world, but when you turn on a television show, you're watching as a third party. So you're watching other people interact with each other. They're not presenting to you.
Yeah.
So I think that people potentially enjoy watching a conversation rather than being talked at in some respects. I think there's a place for direct, you know, when you're talking to your audience, but I think being an observer of a conversation can sometimes be just as powerful.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Anyway, so batch cook your content, think about your content, and get on camera.
Yeah.
People want to know about you.
True.
Not the product. They want to know who is doing it, because that's going to credential yourself and show how fun and lovely you are.
Yeah. Build rapport.
Yeah, 100%. One thing I forgot to mention, I also was invited to Allergan headquarters at Irvine, which was cool. So Irvine's in California. And I got to meet Carrie Strom, who's the president. And it was great because, you know, she's like the head of Allergan Global is effectively America, whereas Allergan International is the rest of the world. So they, in a way, run two separate businesses, because America is so big, so unique, so different, and they brand to consumer.
Right.
It's a different model completely. Anyway, the reason I went is because she had her leadership team there, and we had a really good chat about, I guess, my perspective on Australia, trends, global product, what's coming in the future, but also what do injectors struggle with? What do I think is good education? And it was just really nice to, I guess, be invited just to voice. Yeah. You know, I'm just one injector on the other side of the world, but they really cared to sort of listen to my opinion. So that was cool. And I guess, you know, touching on many of our conversations before, trends, of course, across the world, the economy is struggling. And so I guess if you're an injector, that trend's not going away. It's continuing. And in fact, with everything going on in the States and global politics, et cetera, I think it could be even more tricky. What are your thoughts on the current economy and current crises?
Well, we're in a tumultuous period, and this is always going to come. Yeah. We've had a lot of disruption across the globe with politics and wars and pandemics and, you know, lots of government spending, lots of printing money. We've got, you know, seems like every day there's a new regulation that's making life more difficult for people, and I'm not going to get into which policies are right and which regulations are wrong or anything, but there's definitely been a lot of things happening within a really short space of time. And I think that politicians and bureaucracies around the world have been trying to hold things together with probably sticky tape and but eventually there's going to be a reckoning for that. And so I think that it's just a complicated world. I think that, look, I'm really positive about the future, to be honest with you. I think we're kind of we're going through some kind of adolescent stage as a species at the moment. We've got some things we need to work out. And I think businesses need to be really savvy about what they're doing. You can't really control people's disposable income. You can't really control trends. You can't control your competition. You can't control what policies governments are going to roll out, what regulations are going to come in. So there's lots of things that are outside of your control. And I think it's good to be aware of what's actually going on, so that at least you're kind of forearmed and you can sort of see potentially and predict what's going to happen. but sort of turning inward and focusing on the things that you can actually impact and change in your business and what you can do to upskill yourself. Those are the things that you can control. And as I've said, like so many times on the podcast before, I'm probably people are sick of hearing me say it, is that we've sort of just been meandering along with a lot of complacency because things have been pretty easy for most people for a long time, particularly in this space. And I think that using this opportunity to recognize where your shortcomings are in terms of business, this is the time to be doing it is right now.
Yeah.
Because, like if your customers start dwindling or the average spend starts to go down or they start stretching out their appointments, how do you adjust your business to be able to survive those periods? And if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know what your margins are, if you don't know what your cost base is, where you can potentially save money, if you're making a decision around, new devices or bringing on more people or expanding, like if you don't know your numbers just as well as injecting in some respect, you don't have to become an accountant, but you at least need to know your numbers. Like there are certain metrics that you just need to know, like off the top of your head.
We were talking about this over breakfast, and you've said it many times. People need to know their numbers.
Yeah.
And, I think everyone kind of knows that, but what numbers and where do I get those numbers?
Okay. So let's maybe start with some basic concepts. So when you're looking at your business, so the financial side of your business is governed by two overarching, I guess, reports or concepts. So when you open up your accounting software, whether it be MYOB or QuickBooks or Xero, those are the three main ones. I'm sure there's others out there, but I'm not overly familiar with all of them. But they all essentially do the same thing. You're looking at your profit and loss, which shows you all the money that's come in and all the money that's gone out. And then at the end of that, how much profit is left at the bottom, right? And so the other document is the balance sheet, and that shows you what your business owns and what it owes, so also known as assets and liabilities. And these two documents need to work together to give you an overall sense of the health of your business. So for example, if you're assessing a patient from a medical perspective, someone walks into the ER, you don't just take their pulse, you look at maybe their saturation, you look at their blood pressure, plus you're looking at their heart rate. So you can't just assess someone's health from taking one metric.
Very good. I like that analogy.
Right. So it's the same with your business. So the profit and loss shows you the liquidity of your business or the profitability over a period of time. And the balance sheet shows you what assets and liabilities your business has. And if you're looking at one and not the other, it doesn't give you a full view of the health of your business. So I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm running a profit and loss report for the last quarter of the year. So in this industry, that's the period where we all make lots of money. Patients are wanting to look good for Christmas and holidays and all that kind of stuff. So traditionally, that's when businesses in the aesthetic space have their peak, is in that sort of last 3 months of the year, right? So if I was to run a P&L report for, say, the last 3 months of the year, I might say I made all this money, business is great, everything's great, nothing to worry about, all good. But then I'll have across to the balance sheet and I go, holy shit, we owe this much money to the ATO or the IRS in case of America. I've got all this debt to suppliers that I haven't paid. I've got this huge amount of finance on all these pieces of equipment that I've bought. And I've got not much money in savings at the moment. Yeah. So if I was to look at the P&L, I go, wow, business is great. But if I go across and look at the balance sheet, I go, yeah, we've made money, but holy shit, we've got a lot of debt. The business doesn't have a lot of assets. And conversely, you might have a really terrible 3 months or 6 month period where the business is down, but the profitability looks terrible. But you go across to your balance sheet and you go, we've got a couple of $100,000 in the bank. We don't owe any money to anyone. All our taxes paid up to date, etc. The business has all these assets. So you need to look at both to get an overall assessment. So that's the first thing, is to get your head around your profit and loss and your balance sheet. And if you've got a competent accountant that cares, like that's kind of the key word. You need someone that cares about you and your business.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, accountants, just like every other service provider, there are good ones and there are bad ones. So you want someone that actually takes a vested interest, understands your business and the nuance of it, and actually takes the time to explain these things to you so that you understand.
No, that totally makes sense. And one of the issues that you've encountered a lot with your people that you sort of help is that the data that goes into these software is only as good as the person putting that data in, or maybe your CRM does that. But many people don't do it properly, or they're advised improperly. And so when you look at that data, it's just garbage or it's not enough. So again, is it the accountant's fault, or what can injectors and clinics do to sort of make sure that they are putting the right data in?
Yeah. So just to expand on that a little bit. So a lot of the things that I'll do when I first start consulting with a client is say, let's have a look at these documents, or in some instances, they might provide me with like a access or log into their accounting software. And I can't change anything. I can only view it. So I can't go and change any figures. And I'll have a look at how things are set up. Quite often in almost, let's call it 7 or 8 out of 10 cases, the way that the accounts have been set up are not really effective or useful for this industry. So if I'm looking at, say, the profitability, if I'm looking at the P&L, the profit and loss statement, all I'm seeing is total revenue in, expenses out, and profit, but I can't see where that revenue's come from.
Right.
So I can't identify which areas of the business are doing well and which areas are not doing well.
Yeah.
And, some might argue, well, you can see that information in your CRM system, but your CRM system, I think, is more for like patient information, bookings, stock control. You don't want to be like toggling between multiple. It's already hard enough for people out there, before they start toggling between different pieces of software and trying to get their head around, a concept that they're not overly familiar with while going between different systems. And so unless we've got full transparency around where that money's coming from, it doesn't give me a lot of help in terms of knowing what decisions they should make for their business. So setting it up correctly. So a lot of the time I will look at someone's financials and suggest that we have like a 3-way meeting with their accountant. And I'm always very, cautious. I never want to feel like I'm stepping on the accountant's toes and wanting to be very diplomatic, but just saying, hey, look, can you just change the way that we've set this up? So because normally the accountant will set up your accounting software profile.
Yeah.
And quite often, like say, for example, in Timely, it just will dump. Sometimes people will set up like an automatic feed from Timely into their accounting system. And all of a sudden I'm just looking at total revenue. And then you can actually see like patient names and treatments.
Oh, wow.
But I can't see how it's almost like too granular. I can't see how much money's coming from toxin or how much money's coming from dermal filler or skin treatments or devices, etc. So there's sometimes a bit of like back and forth or some meetings around, okay, let's just see if we can draw a line in the sand. And as we move forward, let's alter the way that we're collecting this data so that it's actually more meaningful for people. But as you said, a lot of the time, if the data isn't input correctly, then the reports that we run are meaningless. So it's really important that the people, like whether it be if you're the injector yourself or you've got a front of house person, admin, receptionist, whatever, that they understand that they need to be entering this data incorrectly and not just sort of, taking the shortcut through and just entering the money that's come in and just selecting whatever category and assigning it to that, because otherwise we can't measure things properly and can't make changes. And so you need to be looking at your figures probably on a monthly basis, even if it's just for like half an hour to an hour, just sit down and look at these things, because things are moving so quickly. If you can't adjust things on the fly, or if you don't know things are sort of moving in the wrong direction or your margin slipped this month, you sort of get to a point where maybe your accountant says, hey, we've got a bit of a problem here. You need to increase your prices by 20%.
Yeah.
And we've had some instances of that in our Patreon group where people have just all of a sudden had a wake-up call. And really, it shouldn't come as a surprise. Like you don't just wake up one day and your business isn't profitable. This is generally a trend that happens, especially in inflationary world, a really highly competitive space now. These things tend to manifest over a period of time. So I think it's just ignorance and fear and not getting the right advice and education at the beginning.
Where do people get the most basic financial literacy? So, for example, where can they learn how to understand what a profit and loss sort of chart shows? The balance sheet, like, is there a good YouTube video?
Yeah, there's heaps. I mean, I spend a lot of time doing this education with my consulting clients myself, and it doesn't take long. I can probably explain the basic concepts within like half an hour, and then every time we catch up, I'm sort of take them a little bit deeper in understanding the process, and then my aim is to get them to be able to do it on their own. Yeah, I don't want to have people reliant on me. I'd like get them educated so they can do it themselves, but their accountant should help them too. Yeah, really.
Good point.
So you don't, like a lot of people will just sign their tax returns. They won't look at it. They'll just go, how much money have we made? Bang. And they'll just sign. They're not actually understanding what it is that they're signing.
Yeah, it's super difficult. I mean, even if you teach someone the basics, I'm one of those people, unless I fully understand it, I still feel like I'm clouded by what I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at the end of the day, got to pay your tax and you've got to work with your accountant. But if you're not armed with everything, it can be hard to sort of have a professional chat about that.
Yeah.
It's like, you might be explained how your operation is going to work.
Yeah.
You understand the basics, but really, do you understand? Probably not. But you kind of go with it because you've been advised by the surgeon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got to find a good accountant.
Yeah, and it's just about knowing enough. You just need to know the key things. So as I said, understanding what a P&L and a balance sheet is, how to basically read them, knowing what your gross margins are on your services. So we're not talking about your fixed costs. So things like your rent and your electricity, those things don't really change too much on a month-to-month basis. They're fairly static. But when it comes to like, what are you buying your Botox for? What are you selling it for? How much is it costing you in consumables to deliver that product? And what's your gross margin on that? Those are that's kind of what I look at straight away, is what's the average margin on the services that are being provided within said clinic.
Yeah.
Because if it's not in this industry, if it's not at least 60%, 60 to 65% gross margin, and I've done a video in our Patreon on how to calculate this, to me, that's an issue. Yeah, the alarm bells are going off at that point. And so, as I said, what's happened is that people haven't reviewed their prices in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Their prices have been static. And then in the meantime, rent's gone up. The cost of your gauzes, your dressing packs, needles, everything's gone up. Cost of your product is gone up as well, probably. So if you're not looking at that gross margin amount and calculating it sort of on a monthly basis, like quarterly be an absolute minimum, but ideally looking at it monthly, then you sort of don't see the early warning signs. It's like, like if you're someone that's a diabetic and you're not checking your insulin every day, then one day you might have like some sort of hypo event, and you know what I mean? So it's just like, it's doing the regular health checks. So the gross margin, so knowing what your margins are. If there's an issue, if the gross margin is, below where it should be, then you might do a deeper dive into specifics. So is there a particular service within your practice that's dragging the average down? So if it's like, below 60, 65%, then maybe looking at, okay, well, let me just break down further now into working out, well, what's the margin on like my tox treatments, my filler treatments, device treatments? It might be something that's dragging that down. So knowing those numbers and knowing what your weekly break-even point is. So how much money do you need to be making as a bare minimum every week to not go into the red?
Let's assume that people essentially understand that.
Yes.
Still, the barrier that I encounter when I speak to people, and it comes up in our WhatsApps, and you've probably had this, is just people are too scared to action it because they think, well, my customers aren't going to tolerate a higher price or, versions of that. But ultimately, I think you've got to bite the bullet and realize that you're not profitable if you stay the way you are.
Yeah.
And if you don't put something in place, you will potentially fail. You can't sort of lose money. Or you can't not make money.
Well, otherwise you're just a charity then.
Well, exactly. But what I understand that people want to be busy and they don't want to annoy their customers. But ultimately, if the numbers tell them you're actually losing money or your profit margin is not enough to sustain this for the year, how do you convince people to change? Because it just seems to be such a big barrier.
The patients or
convince your injectors to change.
Well, it's just getting into the mindset of understanding that all businesses are reviewing their pricing all the time. Anytime you go down to your local coffee store or you put, petrol or gas in your car, those prices are fluctuating all the time, depending on what's going on with the economy. So you should be looking at reviewing your prices twice a year. So you should ask yourself the question twice a year, are my prices right? The other lever to pull is there a better way to buy things? Can I look for a different supplier that's offering a more competitive price? Can my cash flow situation allow me to buy in bulk so that I can get a lower per unit cost? Those kinds of things. Are there services in the business that are just not worth me doing because I can't justify that price? The margin's not high enough. I'm not efficient with it. I just don't do that.
Yeah.
But to get, back to your question, I think doing regular small price increases are far better than waiting a number of years and then like hitting people with like a 10 or 20% hike in one go.
Yeah.
A couple of percent here, a couple of percent there, and not really going to move the needle much for people in terms of like being objectionable.
Yeah.
And then I think there are strategies in how you can deploy that in terms of, well, do you just keep the current prices as they are for your existing patients and do a price hike for new people.
Yeah.
So that way you're not alienating your existing database and client base. You're sort of just testing the waters with new people. So I think there are strategies to roll it out in a soft way, the ways you can add value to the treatments, combination therapy so that you're getting more dollars per customer and making those interactions more valuable on an hourly basis. There are strategies that you can deploy, but the first step is just becoming aware and understanding that all businesses need to look at their pricing on a regular basis. And if you leave it too long, then you do get in a tough position where you have to do something drastic, and that's when people will kick up a stink.
Yeah. I had this chat with many people who I met who generally were doctors or, practitioners.
Yeah.
And they have no idea. They said to me, I've got a business partner. They do all the numbers. I'm just the injector guy. And, just ask a few more questions about, well, what do you guys charge per unit? And what's your cost price? I'm just curious because I want to know what it costs in America. They had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was like, aren't you just curious, like how your business manager makes these decisions? How do you know they're not screwing you?
I've never seen a group of people get more ripped off or have bad things happen to them from a business perspective, getting scammed, than doctors.
Yeah.
Because they generally got disposable income. They're like nice, juicy targets for unscrupulous business people.
Yeah.
And they tend to fall victim to it more often than a lot of other people that I've run into over the years. And that's not just doctors, it's kind of all professionals, to be honest with you. It's unfortunately just when you're so specialized in a certain area that anything outside of that is just like so foreign. And I think a lot of people, especially doctors who, they're inherently very clever people, to get through medicine is not easy, and nurses as well. They feel afraid to admit that they don't know. So they just kind of maybe don't want to ask the questions because then their ignorance will be revealed and they'll feel silly. And I mean, I say to all my clients, do you understand how to do X, Y, and Z? I'm going to assume the answer is no, because 99% of people, the answer is no. And that's okay because no one's taught you.
Yeah.
But let's stop that today. Let's get you on the road of having at least a basic level of competence so that you can sanity check what your accountant's saying to you, what your business advisors are saying to you. So you don't have to become an expert, but you need to know enough to sanity check stuff.
Please, if you're listening to this, actually action what David is saying, because honestly, these questions come up again and again and again and again. And I'm sometimes wondering, are people not listening? Or I don't know what it is that's stopping people.
It's just human nature. I think we sort of bury our head in the sand with things that we find uncomfortable or confronting. But this kind of comes back to, the point, which is people will often be pondering on certain decisions. Do they buy a new device? Do they take on another injector? And how can you answer any of those questions unless you understand your numbers like really thoroughly? Yeah. Well, you're just guessing.
Well, that's a common one. What device should I buy, guys? And like, I don't know anything about your business.
No.
I don't know where you are in the world. I don't know what your budget is. I don't know what the common things that you treat. It's too arbitrary, but people will ask those questions.
Yeah. So we need to know if you can afford it. What's your business situation? Because sure, it might be great to have a new device, but can you afford to make the repayments on that?
Yeah.
And can you afford for that, the forecast that you've hopefully done for this device in terms of how it's going to perform for your business? If you don't hit those numbers, what happens?
Who's going to run it? Where are you going to put it? Is that going to take you away from injecting?
Yeah.
And everything else?
Yeah. I mean, so this is the stuff that I've got a number of workshops next month with Hugel going across the country, helping a certain number of their clients with understanding basic financial literacy. So I break down how to work out your break-even point, how to work out your gross margins. I think many of them are going to bring their financials along, and obviously it's just me having a one-on-one chat with them. It's not like we're talking about their figures with the rest of the group, but just helping them get their head around these things, because I think these companies, especially the companies that are sort of forward thinking and seeing where the economy is going and where their customers are potentially struggling, and they understand that they've got to help them understand these things and become better business people. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. It's great to, I love spending time in the studio, but it's great to get out and actually meet people and have an impact and help them become more empowered with what they're doing. So, yeah.
Anyway, back to my trip.
Sorry, yes.
The end of my trip. No, there was a good segue because, it's super important. Was AMWC Americas held in Miami. So it's a smaller event versus obviously Monaco. That's like 15,000 people.
Same
plus.
company though.
Same company. So they do different legs around the world. They've got one in Asia, South America, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the first one 2 years ago, and that was at a different venue. So that one was at the convention center in Miami. This time it was in a hotel. And I have to say, everyone I spoke to loved the hotel resort kind of concept because, you finish your talks and then you go to the bar and you actually socialize rather than disappearing into your separate hotel. So as an event, I think it worked really well. It was a beautiful location. The weather was great, etc. Some really big speakers. Sabrina Farby, Steve Dayan, Bob Karner, Tom Van Eyck, Yanni Van Longhem, and many, many people.
And Jake Sloane.
Yeah, and then Jake Sloane as well. So I was invited to do 3 talks.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, look, it was good. I found because my trip was very compressed and I had, Laurie, Nicola, 3 talks. And then when I landed in Australia, I had this Botox roadshow with Allergan.
No wonder you weren't answering my phone calls.
Correct. There was a lot of mental sort of, not fatigue, but like just got to plan for one day at a time.
Yeah.
Nail that talk and then bin it and move on to the next. So from a work perspective, it was a new challenge where I've never done so many things in such a short period of time, plus being jet lagged, plus traveling and so on. But my first talk was on how to treat tired patients. Now, I actually gave a very similar talk 2 years ago, but I decided to repeat most of it because it's such a relevant talk and got a lot of good feedback. It was nice to hear from the injectors that they found it very practical. Then I did a talk on trends that I've seen in Australia over the last 10 years. Now, that sounds quite safe, but actually made it all the bad trends, not the good trends.
Oh, right.
So
like what?
Slightly controversial. Well, it was sort of a story. I started from Kylie Jenner lips and that whole craze of lips. I mean, from your perspective as a business owner who used to own clinics, when did the lip thing kick off?
When Laser Clinics Australia started doing like lips to love for like...
Which was when? What year was that?
Gosh, I mean, probably 10 years ago.
Correct. I think it's about 2015 because, I mean, my story starts from Kylie Jenner announcing, I've had lip filler. Because it really did kick off this like worldwide like pandemic of lips. And sure, there were some good looking lips, different lips, but I think we can all agree that at some point, at least our experience in Australia and Sydney, it got out of control.
Yeah.
There were some, nice girls walking around with distorted, puffy, lumpy, bad looking lips. And it became like a thing where it really turned people who may be interested in injectables off. They didn't want to do it because they were like, I don't want that. I don't want to look like a duck. So that was kind of the start of the talk. And then I talked about that sort of developing into just full face overstuffing. And again, I don't know if it was that common, but we certainly saw some unusual people. Still not gone away, of course. And again, it's a taste thing. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but for your average patient, they didn't like it. And we started to sort of lean on one tool, hyaluronic acid, and now we've got more tools and people are demanding to look more natural and skin is in and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's a good change.
Correct. But I mean, the stupid thing is, and this was sort of my summary point, patients have always wanted to look natural and good. They just didn't know what that meant.
Right.
And I don't think injectors know what that meant.
No.
They were taught to do lips and cheeks and that is how injectors are generally taught on day one, lips and cheeks. And if you can't command more than that on a face and understand as an injector, you've got to start somewhere. But if you don't build on that, you start making faces look stranger and stranger because you're doing the same thing every time.
Yeah, and then you start to get perception drift as well.
Yes.
Your eye becomes distorted because that's all you're seeing.
Yeah. And, maybe it's controversial. I said, we've seen people at this conference looking like I'm describing. It's just a fact. There are some injectors who maybe they like it, maybe they don't understand it, but for the patients looking at them, they don't like it.
Yeah.
So, I think we've learned as an industry that, we need to understand anatomy better, use the products in the right place, be judicious, fillers last longer, blah, blah, blah. But I will say, and I was talking to a friend, Dr. Sami Khalifian, he's an injector in the USA. We actually feel that argument's been pushed too far. Now, especially in America, people are just banging the biostimulator drum and they're almost villainizing HA. And I'm like, no, they're just tools that need to be used at the right place, the right time, the right volume. And you need both in many patients. And sometimes you need none. So again, this is where social media has done us a real disservice, where one narrative just runs. And, some of the plastic surgeons in America have got something to do with that. Some of the MRIs done by people who have had something to do with that. And patients are just bloody confused. And that is where we are right now. I even had a text from one of our prominent plastic surgeons in Australia just this morning saying, what do I do with this question where patients are telling me the plastic surgeons in America think that biostimulators are bad? What do I say to them? So even our plastic surgeons don't know how to counter these myths or stories that are being peddled, because it's not really their wheelhouse, but that's what they're encountering from their patients. It's tricky.
Yeah, it is difficult. So what was it? What's the solution, do you think?
Good education. Don't educate through social media. Do good consults. Understand all the brands. Somehow showcase natural results, whether you can or can't do that in your country, but showcase what you think is good style. Maybe address some of these concerns head on with, a video talking about it. Do an Instagram live with someone, debate it, come on podcasts. Just get good information out there. It's very, very tricky because you are fighting a big tidal wave of, I don't know if use the word nonsense, but noise. There's a lot of noise out there, and sadly TikTok and Instagram will amplify it. Yeah.
So it's about, I guess, having a better filter, knowing what to let through.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the same with financials, right?
Yeah. Going back to consultation, sometimes if I notice there's a bit of anxiety or caution with a new patient, I just go straight to the jugular and say, tell me what you're concerned about. Are you worried of looking strange? Have you seen these stories? Let's just address it now, because I want to make you comfortable that, one, I'm not going to do that, but two, what's the reality, at least from my perspective? Because I kind of want to know what's the worst case scenario for you, rather than you don't quite tell me and we never quite trust each other.
Yeah, because that's like the elephant in the room.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes it's good to just sort of address it straight with your patient.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the conference, there was probably about 1,400 people. I don't know exactly. I heard the number 1,400. And from a personal perspective, I felt like there were probably too many rooms, too many options for the audience. And so neither one room was like busy. And so it felt quite dispersed. You're sort of talking to, smaller crowds occasionally. Is that good for the audience? Maybe they've got more choice, more speakers. But to ask international people to fly somewhere to speak to a half-empty room, just felt like sort of
diluted it too much.
Yeah, just sort of felt like the energy wasn't quite there in the room, at least. Yeah. But was it successful? Yes. All the Americans I spoke to said it was a great conference. They enjoyed it. And there's certainly a big focus on business. So might be an option for you to sort of check out.
Sure. Well, I'm waiting for the invite, AMWC.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll hook you up with the people. But, if you're listening to this, they're always looking for speakers. Yeah. You'd be amazed. You might think, I've got nothing to offer, but contact them or reach out to me. I'll give you their details. And, if you've never done an event before, it would certainly be a better event than going to a monster one like Monaco or Paris. You don't want to be doing that on stage for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
So again, going back to how do you get comfortable on stage? We'll do it gradually. Yeah. Smaller audience and
comfortable.
Do something that you're super comfortable with before you get on the big stage and to speak to 3,000 people. That's not the first one to do.
Yeah, that'd be quite terrifying.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But, the usual stuff. Regenerative medicine is in. Yeah. It's not going away. Exosomes, there were so many exosome companies there. There was a good talk, actually. It was Allergan sponsored talk, but it was just about regenerative medicine and skin. They don't really, a couple of their products, I guess, are sort of regenerative, but it was just more a talk about the topic. Right. And just some really interesting speakers and their take on the marketing of exosomes and skincare and so on. But I'm confused with exosomes. We need to find an exosome expert.
Yeah, it's like the market's just been flooded all of a sudden.
Well, it's flooded. There's some from rosebuds, there's some from umbilical cords, there's some from fat cells, there's some from humans, there's some from animals. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to listen to the marketing. I don't know. It was super confusing.
Yeah, we should do a specific chat on that.
I noticed a lot of confusion with polynucleotides in America because they haven't really launched there. There's one brand available, but when I say available, you can buy the stuff, but it's not approved to inject.
Oh,
It's weird.
so what are you buying it for?
Well, people are using it topically. But from my perspective, and from derms who I've spoken to actually at the ALMA conference that we went to, they are fairly sure that PNs don't go through skin needling holes. They're not big enough. The holes that you create with skin needling, and you put a polynucleotide on the skin and rub it in, it won't go in because the chain is too big. That's what a polynucleotide is.
Right.
So are you wasting this product on the skin? Maybe. So again, I don't want to say fact or fiction, but just think about what you're doing with these products.
Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
mean, they're designed to be injected.
Yes.
And just because it's not FDA approved doesn't mean that you should buy it and use it a different way. That seems a bit silly.
That's a good point.
And then, of course, lots of different devices and lasers and so on. But I came across an interesting device called the NaviClick. So my talk for Allergan here in Australia just a couple of days ago was about dose and dilution of Botox. And, should we consider hyper concentrating or hyper diluting our product to create more bespoke results? But it's hard with the syringes that we have.
They're not a very precise tool.
Definitely not. They were designed for just squirting in insulin under the skin or whatever. So this NaviClick, it's got a sort of a ratchet or a clicker system. And I've got a video that I can show you guys. But basically, you can do the most tiny, accurate boluses of your toxin of choice. And it was pretty cool. So I said, can you ship to Australia? He said, well, no, because it's not TGA approved.
Oh.
So sadly not approved here, but an amazing device. So I thought
only a matter of time.
Yeah, if you're in the States, check them out. NaviClick. I'm not sponsored, but I think it was cool.
Yeah, super cool.
And look, it was a good conference, smaller conference, more boutique style. But if you've never been to a conference and you live in that part of the world, I would check it out for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah,
very good.
And then your news. So what are you doing next?
Well, as I said, Hugel's I'm continuing with workshops there next month. I'm off and presenting at BTS in Sweden.
Beauty Through Science.
Beauty Through Science. So that's pretty cool. Getting to talk to the European markets. That'll be cool. Need to write my talk for that. But
so when is that one?
It's in June.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, in June. So yeah, that'll be cool. If you're there and you see me, come and say hi.
Yeah, I mean, so I went to that maybe 3 years ago, and I mean, it was a good conference. Definitely sort of got some big speakers there, so it's great that you'll be on stage with them. But the weird thing is, you go in midsummer in Sweden, and it never gets dark. I mean, it gets dark for about 3 hours. So we were going out for a dinner at midnight, and you look out the window, and it looks like it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's wild.
And then it gets slightly dark for about 2 or 3 hours, and then it's daytime again.
Yeah.
So it really screws with your jet lag.
Oof, that'll be fun.
So enjoy that.
Thank you. And then I recently did a workshop with Alma, and maybe there's some more to come, but that was great to talk to their sort of key accounts around how they, I guess, first of all, select the right device for their business. How do they choose the right company to work for? How do they make sure that the device is successful from the day it hits your clinic? Like, momentum is really important with this because, if it doesn't get used straight away, then it just kind of gets forgotten about and then just collects dust, as we've spoken about many times before. So that was good to have a chat to them about some concepts and things that sort of worked well from my perspective over the years in terms of getting new devices to be used, get them moving quickly, get their patients excited about them, get your staff excited about them, things like identifying your satellite patients and getting them really excited about the product, using them as training models, getting permission to use it before and after photos, particularly here in Australia because we've got all these regulatory sort of control mechanisms around how we advertise injectables. Having a device that you can lean on as almost like a gateway drug. I don't know,
Gateway treatment
to get people in to be able to advertise it. And as I said, there's a big focus now on skin. And I think that devices always work better when they're used as an adjunct to good skincare and injectable treatments because there is some crossover, obviously, but in terms of getting the best result for your patients, having a device is probably what all clinics need at some point. And those satellite patients are going to be really important for being influential in. They're generally the people that have got the big. They're the ringleader of their group of friends. They talk to lots of people. They're big supporters of your business. They're quite happy to, allow you to use their before and after photos. So, getting hold of those people, making them part of your VIP nights, getting your staff excited from day one, bonus structures around this device to get it moving, get momentum going in your clinic. Combination therapy treatments, which is something that we saw a lot of when we were overseas for Alma in Thailand. And that's kind of the future of now how they're incorporating injectables directly with energy device treatments, having things around, things like targets and budgets for your device. And that doesn't mean, shove treatments down people's throats or tell them that they need things that they don't, but just having some sort of understanding of what this device is going to cost you in repayments every month. What does it need to generate for your business to be a worthwhile investment? How do you track those things? So it's just sort of 101 concepts around how to make a device successful. But I think especially here in Australia, as we move into a more skin focused environment and as injectables and, as HA fillers have had a reduction in their volumes, we need to find a way to sort of fix that deficit from a just dollars and cents perspective.
Yeah, I mean, going back to consult, and I spoke about this in my thing with Nicola on that night, is when you talk to a patient, they very rarely understand facial aging. Mm-hmm. So one simple consult technique is just to say, your face is made of 5 layers. Let's go through each layer. And these are the things that I might suggest for you, or at least the options.
Yes.
So start from skin. That's the most visible thing. We've got topicals, we've got lasers, we've got RF and so on. That's generally devices and skincare. And of course, we've got fat layers, superficial deep, we've got muscle, toxins, maybe things like M-face as well. Mm-hmm. And then we have bone. So you can look at anyone's face in your consultation and, talk till the cows come home about the 5 layers of their face, the particular options that are relevant for them, summarize it for them, email it to them, give them prices, and maybe introduce them to your skin team or whoever does skin. And suddenly they might realize it's more complicated, but also might gravitate towards one option that you might not have anticipated because, you're the injector and you're just going to talk about fillers and Botox. Yeah. However, they might decide that the more conservative treatment with skin is more relevant.
Or they want to start there.
Exactly. Yeah. So that would be how I might talk about my devices because patients don't appreciate what is relevant.
Yeah.
So that would be a good one.
Yeah, true. I think that's a really good way of doing it, breaking it up into the 5 layers. And if you do have a multidisciplinary team, then introducing them while they're there. Maybe when they come to see you for injectables, you automatically give them a complimentary consultation with a skin therapist. So you actually start taking the lead and helping this patient plan out a potential treatment protocol or plan for them. So definitely.
And in fact, going back to, banging on the clinical photography thing again, if you take great photos, then they will see how bad their skin is, especially in Australia.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was walking around with my friend Sami again. He's never been to Australia, and his Apple Watch tells him the UV index, and he's a dermatologist. He's like, I have never seen a UV index of 10.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak I don't know why I'm speaking in a drawl. I was trying to do a Californian accent, but I can't do it. But in any case, he was stunned at the UV index. He's never seen that.
Where was he? In Sydney?
Yeah. And Brisbane and Melbourne. Yeah. It was hot in all 3 cities. Yeah. And I was like, well, that is what our patients are exposed to, pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And yet for Aussies, it's just normal to have sun damaged skin or many of them.
Yeah.
And so if you can't explain that to your patients, that is not normal, and that is why they're aging and getting saggy and lax and pigment and so on, then already you're behind the curve. You're not going to be doing them the optimal treatment.
Yeah. Don't know if it's such a great idea taking the widest population on Earth and putting them in one of the hottest countries.
Yeah. Thanks, Britain. Thank you. It's my ancestors for you. But anyway, so that was interesting. And then just to sort of summarize, I did this Botox roadshow just a few days ago and it was great, but it was intense. So we had Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and I guess the learning points, we had 4 speakers, including me and my colleague Sylvia Ramirez. She's from Singapore. She's incredible. She's a toxin expert. She sits on the global advisory board. But I guess the take-home message was whatever toxin you choose, Botox, Dysport, others coming, really understand the science and what are the ingredients, how it's manufactured, what are its, I guess, marketing points, but what is also the reality. So if you're an injector potentially taking a new toxin in your clinic, it's fine to know what it's supposed to do, but now put it to the test. Get that toxin in, don't buy gallons of it, buy a small amount. Explain to your patients very clearly if you're going to change their toxin, why and what's the rationale and what to expect. but then do your own mini trial. And I don't mean, a randomized control trial, but test it. Get your patients back at 2 weeks. Ask them some specific questions. How did it feel? When did it kick in? Is it generally better or worse than your previous toxin? Do you feel more or less rigid or tight or natural, whatever those words are? Then get back at 1 month, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, and really test it. If it says it's going to last for 6 months, it's got to last for 6 months. Otherwise, it's not doing what it says on the tin.
False advertising.
Well, it's not necessarily false. I mean, one of the new toxins coming next month to Australia, yes, the catch-all phrase is 6-month toxin, but then with an asterisk in 75% of patients.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful for those 75 if they get there. But what are you going to do for the 25 who don't? Are you going to give them a refund?
No. Well, it's just good.
Or a top-up or whatever you want to do?
Yeah. So you just got to set the right expectation. Just say,
You might get to 6 months and I'm charging you more, but tough if it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you do in that scenario? I guess if you're charging a premium, then you might have to refund them the difference between what you would ordinarily charge and what the premium is potentially. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but or a credit.
Yeah. I don't want to throw shade on any brands. I'm just saying, understand what you're actually offering people, because there's lots of choice. There'll be another one coming probably at the end of the year, another a supposed 6-month treatment. So it's getting more interesting, more wild, more choice, more patient power, I guess, in a way, because there's more choice. Buying patterns are going to change. There's going to be more competition amongst the brands.
Yeah.
And so again, going back to David's point, look at your numbers, understand what your buying power is. Can you save anywhere, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah.
Well, I mean, in some ways, you're more empowered than ever before because there are more options to buy from different suppliers. 20 years ago, there was like only a few players in town. So if you weren't prepared to pay the price, then you didn't get product. Whereas now there are so many more options. So everyone's trying to get more market share. So as a clinic, you are in the driver's seat in terms of being able to negotiate a product that's going to be suitable for your business, your margins, your patient demographics, etc. So, shop it around, know your numbers. Don't be afraid to ask the question. And it's always a tough one, right? Balancing the medical side of things with the business. It's not... It's a difficult situation.
100%. Cool. Well, we've sort of caught up on our news.
Yes.
Hopefully that was interesting, but we'll be back to regular business with a new guest next week.
Yeah, regular viewing will resume next week.
And I don't know if it's too early to mention, but I think we'll be going to Canada.
Yes.
In September. So if that changes, we'll mention in a new podcast. But we've been invited to a conference in Canada, which will be new for both of us.
Yes.
Neither of us have visited. So we're sort of still in the negotiation / planning stages, but if you're in Canada, we might see you one day.
Come and say hi. We'll announce more details as they come through, and we're going to be doing this conference in, I guess, combination with celebrating our 300th episode, who we've got 2 very exciting guests lined up for.
We do. I mean, the conference will be after 300 comes out, but we have a competition that we will announce sort of around the episode, and it will be to do with the conference. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next episode. For our latest news, follow us on Instagram at Inside Aesthetics Podcast. If you want to get in touch with myself or David, follow us on Instagram as well at Dr. Jake Sloane and David_Inside Aesthetics.
Join our Patreon for invaluable business and injectable education. Get access to our global community of like-minded professionals, live and interactive Zoom sessions, hints and tip videos, webinars, and more. Head over to www.insideaesthetics.com/Patreon for more information.